Hey, welcome to the First Layer. My name's Richard Cleveland. This is Ask for Help, our live stream
that we music do. Back on, man. We were dancing, we were grooving. It was a good Sunday, man. I was feeling that.
As I was saying before, Brian, that guy, you know that guy. He's excited about dancing today because it's a great Sunday. We've got a lot of great things to share with you. We got a lot of great questions to talk about. Yes, we have a lot of great things. I want to talk about those today. We're going to jump into that at the bottom. We have some members, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and Brian is going to welcome you all.
Yes, hit up our fantastic growing list. So hopefully I capture everybody there. Welcome Corey Mack, Dennis Aller, Dwayne King, Geraldine, our lovely backhand host there, Greg 3D Make It, High Tech Redneck, our new member Ian Jones, Jessica Ryan, Joseph Jolly, hopefully I get it right, Jorgen Kainke, Mark Thibodeau, Peter Reynolds, also a member. Thank you for joining. Pure Life, also a member. Thank you all for joining us here. Robert954, Saul S., The Maple Table, aka my eventual brother-in-law, The Scarecrow, and I saw Benny Brady pop up there as well, too. Hopefully I got everybody because the list grows and keeps the alphabeticals. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Well, I do want to say welcome to Robert954, who just became a member right now during this live stream.
Oh, thank you, Robert. Yeah, you know what? It's my chat list didn't highlight you in green. So for those of you who see somebody pop up in green in the chat, they have joined our membership program. And
Yes.
Richard has been digging a lot more into this than I have, so maybe he can explain it a bit better of what it is. But
Okay.
emphasis, it helps the channel. You don't have to become a member, but it does help us.
Sure does. Now, I know a lot of you guys really like our live stream Saturdays, and you love our content, and that shows in the latest video that we just recently uploaded on the Pop 3D scanner, and I can't thank you guys enough for watching that video. So what is membership? Well, memberships are that little join button that you see below the video, right beside the subscribe button, and if you haven't yet subscribed, this is a good time to do it, because we've got a lot of great things coming your way this year. We're going to be diving deep into slices. We're going to be diving deep into all kinds of things that are related to 3D printing, to help everybody that's just starting out right through to our intermediate and maybe into some of our advanced viewers as well. But memberships allow you to have a voice in what we do is in content. So we have 3 levels. You can join at the $1.99 level. Now, this is a monthly commitment. You can cancel anytime. And what does that get you? Well, it gets you access to special emojis, which you can use in the chat. It gives you a badge. As you see, some people have a little white polygon or our symbol.
It's our symbol. It just looks a little tiny.
Logo.
I'm in dark mode, so maybe it looks a little bit different for me.
And the name is highlighted in a different color. Now, each one of those stickers, those are stickers. And what they do is, as you progress as you stay longer in part of our membership program, that's going to change over time. So there'll be a new one at 2 months. There'll be a new one at 6 months. There'll be a new one at a year, and a new one at 2 years. And then you've got access to special emojis. So in the beginning tier, that $1.99, we are going to be expanding it so that we're going to be including members only events in there as well. So once a month, we'll have a members only event. We are also going to include a special link to our Discord, which we've had up for a while, but we've not really taken advantage of it. And I really want to take advantage of it moving forward. And then we'll have members only chat as well. We'll be turning that on just for our members. If you come in at the $4.99 level, you will get access to Double T Tuesday. What is Double T Tuesday? Double T Tuesday is a tip or trick that Brian or I are going to be putting up every Tuesday just for our members. So you'll get that at the $4.99 level, and you'll also get early access to our videos. Because we try and put our videos up on Friday, you'll have basically 24 hours ahead of the regular release of our videos. Now, when you become a member at the $14.99 level, and this is our top tier, this is what we call the top layer. You're not only going to get everything that's in the layers or in the tiers below, but you're also going to get members only after show. Right now, we only have one person there. So we are going to, for that person this week, I know him personally, it's Peter Reynolds. I do appreciate all of his support. I work with Peter quite often. So I'm going to give him some private time instead of doing an after show today. And you'll also get a discount code on any of our merch. So that means our t-shirts, anything that we put up into our store that comes from us directly. So you'll get a discount code for that as well. So those are the 3 levels. you don't have to become a member to support the show. Just watch the show. But if you do become a member, remember that it is a monthly commitment. You can cancel it at any time, or you can drop down a tier if you want. I know times are tough and money is tight for a lot of people, but it really goes to helping us create content for you guys and coming up with new ideas. And you're all going to have a voice in what we do moving forward. If there's something that you really want to know about that we haven't covered in the last year or so, and you really want us to cover it, we're going to take those very, very seriously. Okay? So that's what members are, and we appreciate all of you that have become members today and in the few days leading up to today. And we are going to do our best to fulfill our commitments to you for your generous support every month. And now you already did the shout out to all of our new members.
Yes.
So yes, I just to reiterate who our new members are, I do have them in my book. Yeah, I have a book here.
He's keeping track this time.
We have DeWitt 3D is one of our newest members. Ian Jones, Peter Reynolds, we talked about. Pure Life RC-01 TJ was the very first person to join our exclusive members only club. And we do appreciate that. And of course, we also have our newest one, which is Robert 954. Thank you very much, everybody, for being a part of our club.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's, you know what? I admittedly, as perky as I am, I'm still kind of half asleep today. So, so I'm listening to all this. I'm like, yeah, we're great. We're jamming. No, we honestly, we were launching this and we expected it to be a bit of a soft launch, so we weren't even sure if anybody was gonna pick up. So thank you for those who did jump in. It does give us a lot of confidence. Rex Waldy also has just joined us as a top layer member. Thank you so much. Wow. You know what? We're going to be I'll be able to actually have coffee this week. Thank you. No, this is wonderful. And you know what we want to emphasize to you guys too is we've launched this as another way of being able to support us. But at the same time, we're not going to paywall hide anything. You know, we're going to do a couple exclusive videos that will eventually make it to the main channel as a collaboration, as multiple pieces of information. But it's just a way to get a little bit closer with us, and you can get a bit more one-on-one as well too with issues. Just don't come to us with like an ANET and say, show me how to rebuild it in 8 hours or less.
Which has happened.
It has happened. In fact, we're going into year 3 of our ANET rebuild, aren't we?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, year 3.
Has it gotten any further than the last time?
No.
That's what I thought.
No.
Joseph Jolly was just asking, how do you join?
Actually, there's a button underneath the video. If you're not full screen, you'll see a button that says join. If you click that button, it'll tell you about the 3 tiers that we have, and you can just go ahead and join our club. Just click there, and it'll ask you for your details and whatever else, and then it'll pop up here that we've got new members.
Parker was just asking real quick. He's just saying it's a strange time slot. Yeah, it's a little different for us, but it gives you time to work on your printer in the day. And eventually, when the world returns to normal, I would like to go back out again on Saturday nights. So It made it a little tricky. Just answering Parker's question, talking about the Cyclops scanner, because we did review, if you didn't see our video this week, we reviewed the Revo Point Pop.
We did.
It's attached to a Joby on my side, so it's not really indicative of the final product, but here's the scanner itself there. We actually had a fun time playing with this here, but we briefly spoke about the Cyclops scanners, which is a photogrammetry system set up. The firmware, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's called not Hugo, but something along that lines. It's designed basically to automate a turntable rotating with 2 line-based lasers and a webcam to basically auto-build a photogrammetry mesh for you. For your models. I'm still playing with it, and the reason we didn't cover it in detail in that video this week is quite simply there's a lot of adjustments with the laser to get it accurate, and you know, given that it uses a C270 webcam, there's plenty of better cameras on the market now, so we're looking into different options for that too to make it work better. But you can't compare the two. This photogrammetry is developing a mesh out of flat images, whereas the Revo Point here actually uses infrared light similar to the Kinect camera to create a depth map, and then it goes and reassembles all the different depth points into a common mesh. So they're not really comparable, apart from the fact that they're both called 3D scanners.
Yeah. Now, we've got a long first question.
Yes, we
today,
do.
And this question comes from Mike LeBlanc. And I'm turning this question over to Brian. So Brian's going to give you guys the lowdown on that.
Yes, I will try and paraphrase here, but basically, we were contacted this week by, was it Mike LeBlanc?
It was Mike LeBlanc, yeah.
Mike LeBlanc, perfect. It was just the formatting of the document there. So what happened was he has an Ender 3 Pro, basically worked great, did what it needed to, had a couple of spaghettis here and there. The place that he went to buy filament started recommending upgrades. So big finger shame there. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what we push for. But either way, he was recommending some upgrades, and he went all out, installing an SKR 1.4 turbo board, 2209 steppers, direct drive, see me feed thingy is what he's calling it. I'm trying to figure out what that is. Filament runout sensor and BL touch. Upgrades, it did print well, so that's a good sign with the installation. But the bugs he had is when the print completed, it would not allow you to load another program or read from the card without turning the printer off and on again, which is very weird from my experience. And the filament runout sensor never worked and did nothing with or without filament in it. So he had a clog. Did not power off the printer before scraping and pulling the clog out. Managed to send voltage through the board, frying it. Purchased a new board, same as before, and took all the steps to install a firmware. The shop I've been using only has one tech and has been away. So, you know, they had some level of support there, and then it basically went kaput. They kind of vanished on them. Now, before I continue into the next section, I really want to thank Henry Stolfron. Hopefully I got that right. You let me know in the chat. Thank you for joining us at the top layer level. Wow, you guys have been very supportive this week, and we definitely appreciate it, and we got some cool stuff coming your way. Thank you. We will. There will be a card at the end of our videos, and as you join, we will be adding you all to the list to make sure you get the recognition you need. So stay tuned. Thank you for that. Now, back to the question here. Download VS Code in Marlin, took all the steps in the videos, but when I add the firmware code changes and write the firmware, I'm not able to. It doesn't show an error in the program, but it doesn't want to compile. So there's a lot going on in this question. Basically, unfortunately, you've kind of put yourself, Mike, in a lousy corner. And this is why we don't recommend people do massive upgrades without understanding every little bit and piece. So given all of the changes that have occurred, I think we really need to scrap everything we've done software-wise so far and start out with a fresh set of code. We've spoken about it before, but with Marlin, I'll see if I can find us the website here. There is a set of Marlin default configurations that's released with each revision of Marlin as a baseline for every printer. Let's see if we can find it here. Default configs. Configuring Marlin configurations. They moved it recently. Or no, maybe they... oh yes, they have it on a different GitHub here. So if we go ahead and switcheroony over to the web browser here. So if you go to the Marlin firmware GitHub, there's a section for configurations. And now they've got different trees on here. If we go back, we go to the root level of configurations, he has all these different ones for every release. And this is what you're going to want to grab. So if you go and grab Marlin 2.0.72, which is the latest, you want to select Release 2.072. Now you can download all of these configs if you really want, but we don't really need to go that level. Simply go to Config, Examples, select your printer. In this case, which printer did he say he had? Ender 3 Pro, right?
Yep.
Ender 3 Pro. So if we find a Creality, and you can see there's a config for every single one, including the version 1.5 board, which I believe is the 32-bit variant that started popping up here. So you need to know what's in your system. Even if you've swapped out the motherboard, this is always still a good baseline for all the other parameters. So going to Ender 3 Pro. Oh, look, they've even got the boards pre-configured for like the E-minis and stuff. V1, V4.27. Now, given that you're going to 2209s, I would say it's probably okay to grab the SKR Mini 2.0 version. And you can see it gives you a boot screen, status screen, configuration, and config advanced. You just download those and save them over top of your version in that Marlin 2.072 folder. And if you take a quick look at this, you'll see it is pre-configured for, in this case, dual serial ports for the E3 Mini. This is the area you will change to an SKR V1_4_ turbo, I believe it is. You can change your machine name, but everything is pre-configured, including your thermistors and everything for that system. The only change you would have to make, given that you have 2209s, oh, in fact, this one's pre-configured for a 2209. So it has most of your firmware done. You'll have to do specific configurations in relation to your filament runout sensor, because if it's, simply put, if it's reading as filament is there and it always does, pulling in and out, sounds to me like the wiring may be wrong and or the config inside Marlin is incorrect, because it has to see a state change and you have to know what that is. So what I would suggest, because this is a bit of a doozy there, Mike, I would suggest let's break out all the hardware you've got there, make a post on the Facebook group so we can break it down into sections to make it a little bit easy, because unfortunately this one, it's not going to be a one-line code fix. It's going to be basically a rebuild there. And I'm sorry, the original shop, if a store ever does an upgrade for you, adding any of these features there, they have to build firmware for it, and they should give you a copy of that firmware, both the source code and the compiled copy. And it will fit on, unless you're using like a 128 meg SD card, it will fit right on that card. So make sure they give you that original firmware so you have something to go back on. Richard, do you have anything to add to that?
No, but I do want to welcome Joseph Jolly to the infill category on our members. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Joseph. My apologies. There was so much stuff I had to read through there. I didn't even get a chance to look at the chat. So.
No problem. I think
that's my job now.
Yeah, that's Jerry's job. I think she's got a chat that or a question that she wants to pull forward for us. How do I get my first layer perfect for 3D printing? What a great question. How you do that is you level your bed. If you don't have a level bed, you're not going to get a good, solid first layer. Now, the other thing to remember is not only does the bed have to be level, but you got to do it right. And you got to make sure that the offset, and that's the distance between the nozzle and the bed when it starts printing, is set correctly. Once you've got that, you should always get a perfect first layer.
Yeah, you basically got it there. Now, first layers, it will vary material to material. PLA is usually the easiest as it's the most tolerant material. But just to bear in mind, when you level a bed, if you're changing materials especially between PLA and PETG, for instance, your actual Z0 will change based off how much squish the material likes. And there's lots of great images out there. I'm not going to, normally I would have one here that I would say it's from All 3DP or whatever. Just Google up the proper squish level for PLA, and the images kind of speak for itself. You don't want it. And a good way to check is when it starts printing side-by-side lines, say doing a flat bottom there, if you run your finger across it and you're feeling bumps, then that means it's too close. If you see gaps between those lines, then you're too high up. And it's just a perfect balance in between. And, as long as it's not super bumpy, take it and let it go, because you can spend years trying to finalize that final bed leveling amount and never be exactly satisfied with it. In my experience, it's actually better to have a little bit extra squish than it is to have it spaced out. And there's some other tips coming up on helping with that drag on the adhesion on the surface, just to make it a bit cleaner.
You bet. All right, let's get into our next email. It says, I recently purchased a CR-10 V3 and I was blown away. by how much quieter it was versus my CR-10S.
Oh,
I saw
think
this.
We skipped one in there, the Sean one.
Oh, did we? Oh, I did.
Yeah, we skipped Sean. Yeah,
Oh,
sorry about that.
Sorry, Sean. Well, let me finish this one first.
Yes,
and then we'll go back to
jump
Sean.
around.
He says he saw a video on YouTube which shows how to do everything, although I have a BL Touch in the firmware just for stock CR-10S. Is it possible to edit the CR-10S hex file to enable the BL Touch? No, it is not.
No.
You will have to actually get the source code, which means the Marlin configuration, and make the changes there. Now, he goes on to talk about some of the other things that he's done here. He says, if editing the hex file is not possible, which present do I select in Marlin to use a CR-10S as an Ender 5 plus silent mainboard? The Ender 5 silent mainboard is the same mainboard that they're selling for just about every printer now. So it is a silent mainboard. So I would,
yeah,
I know exactly which one he's talking about. It's the same one that goes into the new CR-10 to keep it quiet.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that. It is, oh man, it is, yeah, it's the same form factor as the 2.1 board, actually, looking at the photo. So yeah, same board, drop-in replacement. They have, don't ask me why, but they populated, if you look at the photos of the board online, they populated the IC for an additional extruder, but they didn't put a heat sink on their photo.
So with that,
awesome?
You're going to have to download CR-10S firmware for that particular board. Well, their boards are pretty universal, so you'll have to make some changes in the CR-10S so you're using a silent board. So that's
actually, wow, that, you know what that board is? It's a version 2.2.1.
Yeah.
So
it's the same board that's coming in the new CR-10S.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly
your
the same board.
configuration, if you're going from, because it's 2208, which probably means there is some UART config on there, but otherwise, yeah, the 2.1 config may actually work pretty close straight out of the box.
So now I'm going to go back
Yeah.
and to Sean's question really quickly before Jerry jumps in, because I know she's got a few questions waiting. Sean says, I greatly enjoy your work and channel. First off, there are only a few people I follow and go to for information, and you all being the top. Well, thank you very much, Sean. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I am still a little green to 3D printing, but I'm learning fast. Currently, I'm using Fusion 360, Cura 4.8, and an Ender 3 Pro on Windows 10. I'm having some issues with connecting my printer to the computer via USB. I get a notification a new device is connected, but nothing further, and I'm having some trouble locating a how-to video on out-of-the-box or initial setup for this. Hope you can help. Also have an issue with elephant foot on the prints. I have set my step per millimeter with a calibration cube, and I measure it 20 by 20 by 20 with the elephant foot in the first few layers, starting at the first layer and ending about 2 millimeters up. Hope you can help me out. Thanks again for the help. So your first issue here, let's tackle that first. The USB plug. Now, Windows doesn't really know what these boards are. It doesn't know what this is. So we have to somehow tell it what this board is. Now, through Cura, if you're using Cura 4.8, you should be able to connect this on the port that this is showing up on in your device manager. So with that said,
I have a board here for you guys to see this, but what you need to know basically is on the board here, it emulates a serial port. And that's what, when you connect your USB, it actually is supposed to show up as a virtual serial port. And there are different chipsets without getting into all of them. We're talking like CH340, PL2303. There's a whole bunch of them. But luckily, because this is an Arduino compatible board, when you install Cura, it asks you, do you want to install drivers? And if you say yes, it actually installs a COM port driver that hopefully this should enumerate to and install automatically. Richard, I don't believe you have. Actually, I'll share mine real quick so you guys can see what it should look like here. So if we go into our device manager, apologies for the tiny text here. This is just a big screen. You access device manager just by hitting your start menu and typing device, and device manager should show up. Now, when you plug in a device, automatically, if it doesn't identify it, there will be a yellow triangle in this in here beside that device. But we can see right now everything looks resolved. You want to look for this ports, COM, and LPT, and this goes back to the days of 1994 or so, when you had LPT was your printer with that big wide cable, and your smaller serial devices were RS-232 DB9 pin, blah blah blah. But here under ports, we'll show you all of your communication ports, your serial ports, whether it's virtualized or not. So we can see I've actually got a device here called a Blackmagic RS-422 serial port. Now, back in the day, you had to go in these and you had to sometimes configure your baud rates and all that. Luckily, 422 is different. 232, it's handled by your program. You don't have to worry about any of that. But you'll see here, the most important part is what's within your brackets. It says COM3. So that, based off this, we can say this Blackmagic device is on COM3 of our serial ports. Now, when you have a printer installed, it might say RS-232 serial device or something similar. If you're ever unsure, just unplug the device. This screen will automatically update and the device will vanish. Plug it back in and it will pop right back there. And that will be your COM port. Now, when you go into something like, I believe I still have Arduino IDE on this computer here. If we load this up here, it scans your computer and determines all of the communication ports that are available. It doesn't always tell you what the device is, so it's not the best way to go. But if we go to ports, we can see out of serial ports, it only offers COM3. But by going to device manager, we now know what COM3 is, and we can do our communication and our board flashing through that.
Now, the other thing that you want to watch for is in Cura. Now, I have to go to that screen. Let me go to that screen here real quick. In Cura, you are going to have to let Cura know that you have a board attached. Now, if we go to monitor the Mingda Rock 3, it's not plugged in, so it can't monitor anything that's going on. None of my printers are plugged in. You just basically pick the printer that you've got plugged in, and it should find it automatically. So you'll have to go to the monitor to see it, but you can monitor your prints that way.
Now, if you're ever doing firmware updates and all that sort of stuff, the one big flag to keep in mind is that when you open Cura, it actually seizes control of all your serial ports while that program is running. So if you try to upload firmware and Cura is open, it's going to say access denied. If you try and do something through Arduino, it's going to freak out. If you try and use Pronterface, or if you try to use Simplify 3D to send G-code commands, for instance, it will fault, and that's because Cura is open. So my little tip of the week, anytime you're updating firmware, be sure to close Cura and any other program that can interfere with your serial port communications, and you'll have no problems whatsoever.
All right, Jerry, have you got another question?
Yeah, we have another question here from Henry.
Yes.
Yep. Can I upgrade my CR-10S with an SKR Mini E3? Henry, you sure can. It's funny you should ask that question, Henry, because we are going to be doing a complete upgrade on a CR-10S, a first generation CR-10S, and we're going to be putting in that exact same board. We are also going to be upgrading to the touchscreen with the dial. And I'm going to be walking you through that. That's going to be a multi-part series. In the first part of the series, we're going to take out the old hardware, put in the new hardware, and configure the firmware. And then, of course, in the second part of the series, we'll see how it printed, and then we'll start adding other items like filament out detection and BL touch. So you'll want to watch for that. That should be coming in February.
Yes. Now, just as a heads up for you on that one, just based off our experience and what I can show you here. So here we have the original Creality 2.1 board, and here we've got an E3 dip, which is the same form factor as the Mini. It just gives you swappable steppers instead. Now, these two holes, the ones right up here by my thumb, you'll see they actually do line up for bolting inside the 10 case. So that's actually not a problem, which is kind of nice. But where it's going to get you if you're going straight from a 10S to one of these boards is you notice at the top there's only 4 stepper connections. Now on a 10S we have dual Z, so you're going to need to buy a motor splitter, and unfortunately I don't have one here right now. They're fairly cheap, but to run 2 Zs you need to have that splitter. And then the other thing is that going from a 2-pin video cable or a 2-connector video cable with the 20, I think it's 20 pins here, down to the single one, you actually have to configure it as a CR-10 display instead of the RepRap Mini full discount, blah, blah, blah. There are instruction guides out there, but if you're going to a 10S, because this board is designed specifically kind of as an Ender 3 retrofit, there are a couple pin changes, and I believe you do have to crimp one JST-style DuPont connector as they were 2 wires. I believe it's the cooling, the case cooling. I could be wrong.
No, actually it isn't, because there's enough ports on this board to allow you to have 3 fans. One will be an always-on fan, and 2 are controlled via the firmware. Now,
yeah, there was something I swear I had to cut. I think I maybe had to cut off one of the connectors. That's right. Yeah, yes, it was the fan, because one of the fans. Oh, you know what? We do have fan 0 and fan 1 now. Okay, then I think you're good.
Yeah, like I said, we're going to cover all of that in an upcoming video starting in February. We've got a few things that we have to get out of the way, commitments that we have to get out of the way to vendors that have sent us product for review. So that's going to be our focus for the next few weeks. And then in February, we're going to jump in and really start talking about terminology, showing you how to do some of these upgrades. They're fairly easy, especially if you have an older CR-10 like I do. I've got like one of the first generation CR-10 S's. Fortunately, it had the dual lead screw. I think the 10 had a single lead screw, and the 10S came out with the dual lead screw, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yeah. And you could get the dual Z kit for the original CR-10. What you got to watch with some of the early Creality stuff is they had some weird hybrid boards. So there was one that actually had a different ribbon connector to the LCD. I think it was like a common pin header. Just make sure before you commit to upgrades, pop open your box, take a look at your board real quick, because not all printers are the same, as we've discussed many, many times in the past.
All right, we're halfway through the show, so I've got to do this today. Let you guys know that if you have questions for us, one of the ways that you can do it is by sending your questions in advance to questions@thefirstlayer.com. Those questions will be sorted through and put into a document so that we can read them during the live stream and answer your questions. So, if you put something in through the week, make sure you're on the live stream, because that's where that question is going to get answered. And we do appreciate you all for using questions at the first layer, but that's where they got to go, because if they come to me personally, chances are, and this is the bad thing, chances are they're going to get missed. They usually end up in my spam folder, and that automatically empties every day, so I don't see them sometimes, and then people get upset. So to avoid that, let's send them to questions@thefirstlayer.com. Also want to let you know that Super Chat is always on. If you've asked a question in the chat today and you got a reasonable answer and you're not a member yet, please feel free to use Super Chat. It goes a long way to helping us out. And also subscribe if you're brand new here. And I forgot to welcome anybody that is new here today for your first time. We do appreciate you showing up. And make sure that you ding the little bell so you get notified every time that we do a brand new episode or that we're going live. So that all helps. Now, the memberships, as we explained at the top of the show, we are still kind of tweaking those a little bit. So we are going to be adding Discord and a few other things like members-only events and stuff to our first layer level. And then, of course, everybody in the infill gets something a little extra, and everybody in the top tier gets something a little extra, but they can take advantage of everything that is below their tier. So we do appreciate all of you that have become members today. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. It really goes a long way to helping us produce new content and get stuff in that vendors don't send us to review. All right, let's get on to it. A bit
of the stuff we have.
Okay, we have another question here from Trevor Richard.
Okay.
Trevor Rickard, yeah.
Rickard. Yeah.
I'm bad with names. Real horrible with them.
That's okay. That's okay. Rick, Trevor's been around for a long time. That's the only reason I know that one. Thanks for hanging around, man.
Question for all. I updated my 1.3 SKR, and ever since I've done that, I can't see the board on my computer, so I can't update it anymore. It shows it on the computer, but with no SD card showing up. Brian, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky one there. Let me see if I can pull up my Visual Studio Code here. So with the 1.3 board using the LPC 1768, there's some configuration options you have to set. Now I'm going to check and see which item I checked it for here. My follow-up would be on that board. Are you actually seeing the printer show up on the? Are you seeing the SD card show up on the printer itself too? Because there is LPC 17. I always get these wrong there. I know it's noted somewhere inside Marlin here. My apologies. It takes a minute to find sometimes, but there's something for. Here it is. There's something for SD card support here. Let's see if I can change over to that. So whenever you set up Marlin for the LPC boards, the SKR-13, 14, make sure under Configuration Advanced H, you want to find this section for SD card choices, whether it uses the LCD, onboard, or custom cable. Myself, I always use the onboard SD myself, which is the one on the motherboard. You can use one on the LCD, but I've never actually done it there. So you do onboard there. Now, for the, it says by default, an onboard SD card reader may be shared as a USB mass storage device. This option hides the SD card from the host PC. That's commented off by default. If you wanted to protect it and not have it show up when you connect to the PC, you would uncomment that line. But change this guy here to onboard, and as long as your serial port configs and everything are set up properly under config.h, which I believe, off the top of my head, they are -1 and 2, similar to the E3 mini boards. As long as you have these set up, especially the onboard one here, it should populate with the card in that disk drive when you connect it to the PC. And that's it for that. Oh, that's my Discord.
Sorry, I hit the button.
That's okay. Tiberius Ruthers. Hey, I have a non-sticking bed. Any recommendations? Level your bed properly and use some glue stick if you're using glass or mirror or anything like that. If you're using one of the textured beds, then you shouldn't have to. It'll all depend on the amount of squish and whether your bed is level. And that is the best.
That first layer, guys.
Yeah, we are going to get back into. We've got a video out that talks about first layer adhesion issues, and we've covered all this. But we're going to update that one this year because there's many different surfaces out there now, so I want to basically cover them all. With that said, we've got a question here from Don. He says, "I'm in need of some help. I just received my MZ 2.0 and I'm using Cura 4.7, an idea maker, but no matter what way or profile I slice it with, it prints on the very top edge of the home corner of the bed and doesn't center the print. Getting very frustrated and don't know where to turn. Not my first printer, by the way, so I'm kind of knowledgeable. Any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Don." Don, what I'm going to say to you on that one is if it is printing up in that top corner, do you have BL Touch or any type of auto bed leveling turned on? If you do, you have to make sure that it's got safe homing enabled. If you don't have safe homing enabled in your firmware, then it's always going to go back to that corner, and that's what it's going to think is your starting point. So you want to make sure that you have safe homing enabled if you're using some sort of auto bed leveling system, whether that's an inductive, a capacitive, or a BL Touch, anything like that. So that should solve that problem.
Also, make sure your bed is set for the proper size in your slicer.
Yes.
There's a lot of people, if you are doing a custom config there, it'll default, I believe, to like 100 by 100 build area. And just make sure to clean that up, set it to your proper build size, and everything should print in the center of the bed then.
Yes. Okay, and the last question that we have from Rob Sheridan this week is, I just purchased a Creality version 4.27 silent board for my Ender 3. I can't find any information anywhere about firmware. Do I need to update the firmware for my Ender 3, or is the main board good to go as it is? Rob, usually they ship those, if they're selling them for an Ender 3, with firmware on them. If there is no firmware on that board, just go to their website, creality3d.com, and go into their download section, find your firmware, and then just upload the firmware to the board. And you can do that by plugging the board into your computer using a USB cable, and you should be able to update that board no problem. Okay, pretty simple. All right, Jerry, what have we got for questions?
The firmware it comes with is no good for the most part.
Yeah,
I think it's okay for an Ender 3, but assume it's bad. Don't power it up until you have a firmware ready.
There you go. All right, Jerry's just sent one over from ST. Is a glass bed better for printing than the current one on the Ender 3? My opinion, yes.
Yeah, depends on which one it came with there, but
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the default beds, there's only a few handful default beds that I'm okay with. One of the printers I was working on last night, I was explaining, it comes with the Anycubic Ultra base, and that's actually a decent bed. But anything, even the Build Tack clone ones there, I find, even though they're good right off the bat, they fail after about a month, and then they're kind of a pain to get a replacement on the fly. So PEI flex sheets, so one big thing we've been pushing. Richard loves mirrors, so find something that works for you, and it's just, it'll outlast. Anything you replace will outlast what you have.
Yeah, exactly. Because those sheets, if you've got the magnetic one, the flexible magnetic one, those are made as a consumable. So if you're too close to the bed, you could burn it or scar it, and over time, if you keep doing that, then of course you're going to ruin that top surface, and you can't just flip it over. So what I've done with my Ender is I've just taken all that magnetic crap off, and I just use a piece of glass, and I just clamp the piece of glass, a little bit of glue stick, make sure the bed's leveled properly, and away you go. You should be just fine. We got any more questions, Jerry?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going back to find these questions because
we just answered this one.
See what I mean?
This is what happens when we're getting back into things, and for those of you wondering what I'm clicking away on here, because it came up in a stupid conversation with the Revo Point this week here. I'm trying to make my head a chia pet, so I'm working on
that. Is frightening, man. That is frightening.
Right?
The head that you'd use terrifying. The scanner on?
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Mesh Mixer has some cool sculpting tools, just so you guys know. So you can make it symmetrical, and I can give myself some devil horns if I really want, and a big curly mustache. There's terrifying stuff you can do with Mesh Mixer with a few clicks there. So I'm relearning all this, and once I get all my sculpting in play, I'll maybe give you guys a video on how to do some intro sculpting inside Mesh Mixer. It's actually surprisingly good for it.
Brian as Cthulhu.
Nightmare. Yeah, there you go.
All right, our next question is from 3D Make It. He says, if you have an LPC 1769 processor on the board, you have to issue an M22 first to see the SD card show up as a USB device. I didn't know that. Thank you very much.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't actually have to do mine. So maybe one of the settings I have on mine, I'll check it again later. It might have done it automatically in Marlin. Marlin's always updating a few little things here and there. So you got to keep an eye on all those change logs, or you're going to have a bit of a painful time.
And from Daryl Watts, he says, how do I know when it's time to change out my nozzle? Well, there's a couple.
When it stops working.
When you start, and I didn't mean to laugh like that and maniacally, but when you'll know when you need to change your nozzle when it's over extruding like crazy and you haven't changed any settings. Your print looks like it's got massive holes in it. and Peter Reynolds, who's in our chat today and a member of our first layer group or first layer memberships. I actually was over at his place a while back, and he was having that exact same issue where, it printed fine for so long, but then it just went nuts. And I looked at the actual opening on the nozzle. We ended up changing out the nozzle, and he's been printing great ever since. So what I typically do was I will take a wire brush like this, and you can get these anywhere. And this is a brass, so it's nice soft. It's not going to damage your nozzle at all. And I'll just get underneath there while it's warm.
Even that though, yeah.
Yeah, and I will just give it a little scrub to get off any excess material that might be causing me issues in my print, like dragging or blobbing. Because sometimes a blob that's sticking on the side can work its way down into your print. It'll show up as a black spot or something along that line. But using a brass brush really helps. And always take a look at your prints. Make sure that you're not too close to the bed and you're not dragging on the bed. Because if you're too close, you're going to wear out that brass nozzle pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And what's next, Jerry? The Scarecrow. I just got a glass bed on my Ender 3 Pro. Do you have to take the magnetic sticker off the bed? No, you don't. You can leave that magnetic sticker on, but you are going to want to adjust your offset and make sure that you re-level the bed so that it is not dragging or trying to dig into the glass as it's doing its bed leveling or homing.
That, and if you don't remove the magnetic bed, there might be some different heat transfer properties. Yeah. One thing people forget when moving to a glass bed is you need to update your bed temps usually by 5 degrees or so. Yeah, because it has to transfer to you there. And I would say to preheat your bed a few minutes before you plan on printing, just to give it time for that heat to transfer through the glass. Because remember, the thermistor is at the bottom of the steel at the bottom of your bed. And it does take time for it to radiate up there. You think about it, if you went and threw a potato in the oven at 400 for 30 seconds, is the inside of that potato 400? No. Is it 400 after 5 minutes? No, maybe 10 minutes is up to there. So yeah. If you are having bed adhesion issues and you think, I've heated my bed, it's working fine. If you have sensitive hands, don't do this, but luckily these meat finglers have touched a lot of heated things there over time. Just touch the top of the bed in the corner and make sure it's pretty warm to the touch. Just otherwise, your bed adhesion methods might just be moot. You might just be dragging a nozzle across cold glue or dragging across cold PEI, and your filament will not bind to that, and it will curl up on the nozzle, and you'll think, oh, my height's clearly wrong. No, make sure that bed is heated properly.
All right, what do we got next, Jerry? From Louis Eric Simard, thoughts on the new 5-axis printing tech?
I've been looking a little bit into this last night.
I have not.
So 5-axis printing is similar to take a proper 5-axis CNC and replace your drill bit basically with a hot end nozzle. So it does introduce some characteristics. Mechanically, I don't see any challenges with implementing it on the consumer market. Apart from the cost, because you can't go with steppers. You need to have servos that track the location, and you need to have high torque ones that can handle any kind of vibration and movement. It does take up a lot of room for the actual build volume you'll achieve, because now you've got an arm trying to move to all these different places to turn like that, and to be able to do the same direction on the other side in addition to the vice versa. The biggest challenge, I think, will be in the actual slicers and figuring out the volumetric flows. And the other problem, too, is traditionally 5-axis deals with subtractive manufacturing, where you have a block of material and you're removing material. Now, in this case, when you're adding material, you either need to find some way to instantly, rapidly cool a filament the moment it comes out of the nozzle so that you can print free-floating, or you're basically just not doing anything beneficial from FDM. You would basically print a rough copy at, say, 0.3 millimeter layer height and have the base model out there, and then you would do similar to stuff you saw from Teaching Tech recently on the non-planar 3D printing. You'd have to have that nozzle pass over and comb the surface basically to get that smoothness. I don't think I think it's more of an experiment than actual practical on the market. or when you get into the high-end industrial such as metals where you can rapidly cool them into shape, I think that's where we're going to see 5-axis. But on the consumer side, I think really we're going to start tapering off now with these belt printers and everything. We're going to see really no big changes in the kinematics of how 3D printing works.
Yeah, I agree. And what's next, Jerry?
One of our members has a question.
Okay.
Yes.
This comes from Ian Jones, one of our members. He says, having an issue with infill not printing properly, walls or printing fine, or the walls are printing fine, but the infill looks as if the extruder is not pushing enough filament out as part of the infill is missing. You might be printing too fast on the infill. Slow down your print a little bit on the infill, and that should fill it in.
Also, infill has a tendency, number one, to be higher speeds, and number two, to be sometimes making assumptions that there's filament below it. Now, in my experience, I've noticed that although, the perimeter walls look good, the infill may be looking a bit thin. That might be because you're actually over-temping your material, and it's coming out as a liquid, so it blobs out a little bit at the beginning of the line and then stretches thin for the whole duration of that move, only to blob up at the end. So definitely experiment with your temperatures a little bit, and you'll notice that also in corners too. Especially if you start playing with linear advance and all those changes, I would suggest drop that temperature and just see if your extruder starts clicking, because that's the end goal, is to get the material out of the nozzle at that perfect temperature. And you can always go 15, 20 degrees higher, but because the plastic is still flexible at that cooling point there, you will get some abnormalities at times.
Yes. Jessica Ryan put into our chat here, and I just want to cover this. She says, I would be careful cleaning the nozzle that way with a brass brush. It can short out the main board. Yes, it can, but if you do it correctly and you're not scrubbing on the side, all you're doing is just doing this when it's warm. Just on the bottom, you're not getting on the sides, and you should have no issues with it shorting out. If you're not careful, yes, you can short it out, and I do agree with that.
Now, if
be
you
very careful.
I'll tell you what happened there, Jessica, is the short occurred on your heating cartridge because the brass touched joined basically the two prongs that go into that cartridge. Now, that's something to bear in mind. You probably shouldn't have put... your wires may have been a little exposed, so this may have just kind of exposed that for you. But if you really are worried about shorting it out, we'll get to the super chat in just a moment. But when you end up doing it to avoid the short, because there's not a lot of power going through on the thermistor line, just heat it up to 230, 240 if you need to. Give it a good, and then shut off the heating altogether, because then there's nothing too short because the loop has been broken upstream. So heat up to 240, turn off the heater and scrub it, and that should give you enough time before it drops below, say, 170 or so, and reduces your risk of actually shorting anything. If you end up shorting the thermistor, those wires shouldn't be exposed, but if they were, all it'll do is turn around and say thermal runaway and turn off the printer. You're not likely to cause any actual major damage.
Super chat. Thank you, Ian Jones, for the super chat. Not only is he a member, but he's also on our super chat.
Thank you very much. Eventually we're going to have to collect mailing addresses because people have been far too generous. We got to share the love back.
Yes, we do. Pab TV, are you able to comment on the TH3D firmware?
Yeah. I mean, it's good for beginners. It's still Marlin stock, just with a lot of headers up front to make it easier to edit. It's maintained by Tim Hoogland, who knows the firmware quite well, and he's been pretty darn good at keeping up with the latest releases. I used to have a much more firm opinion because there were certain features he didn't want to include on his firmware, whether that was a choice for his business or just didn't want to support it. That's his choice. But it does work. We just don't deal with it much because, number one, in Canada, we don't have a TH3D distributor. Therefore, getting the parts is prohibitively expensive. And basically, as I've said before, TH3D is a good introduction to the firmware. But once you've understood stock Marlin, it takes maybe 2 to 3 minutes to set up a base firmware and go onto the machine. So it based off your comfort level. If you are just getting started, and if someone has a pre-built config for your printer for TH3D, grab it. You're not missing out really on any features.
There you go. What do we got next, Jerry? Because we've only got 4 minutes left.
One more question from the scare.
Oh,
what's that?
Yeah, well, I was just saying, Jessica Ryan was saying she blew the main board when doing that cleaning. Yeah, that's the problem with power shorts, is there's not a lot of power protection on there, and it can create ugly things. So just be aware, brass is conductive as a metal. So when we clean the bottom of our blocks, the area we're scrubbing is purely the flat end and the nozzle itself. If you're scrubbing hard or you're scrubbing on the sides, that's when you can come into contact with your heating core. But if you scrub just the bottom, and take your time, the plastic will be liquid at that point. Mm-hmm. Just take your time and pass it over a couple times. I've seen a few people, especially if you're comfortable with your offset, you can hardwire it into your printer and have the nozzle scrub across every print, but you have to have your printer dialed in or you will have those shorts. Absolutely. So, thank you for sharing your experience with us, Jessica. We're very sorry to hear that's how it ended up.
One of the ways that you can combat that is by getting yourself a sock. Getting yourself one of the silicone socks for your printer.
Yes.
And that should help it. That way, when you do take the brass brush and you're cleaning, you're only going to get the nozzle. You're not going to be able to get into any of those other areas because of the way the sock goes around the block of the hot end. Amanda M.
Yes.
Welcome to the first layer.
There we go. We're doing our clapping.
That's our golf clap.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the Sansa, yes, just heat it up and turn off. Let me emphasize, turn off the heating. Don't turn off the printer because you don't want to have the filament swell in there because the fan's off. Just heat it up to 230, then set it back to 0 and clean it while it's cooling down.
There you go. All right, let's answer this question from the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
I was curious about the G-Tech AM or 10M printer. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Plus, I don't see a join button on your channel.
Let me. Well, I'm going to pull up the join, but I'm going to pull up the YouTube page here. I normally leave it and just have the chat floating here, guys, but I'll pull it out just to show you where that button is and make sure it is showing for me. Here we go. Okay, so if I quickly share my screen here, transition over. So here we are, time delayed by 10 seconds here. So hello, me in the future, from the future. Down right beside the first layer down here, you'll see beside your subscribe and notification bell, which if you haven't hit, please hit it. We do love having new subscribers, and YouTube loves us for analytics, apparently. There's this blue button that says join, and then when you hit that, it shows our different levels and what you're getting. And we're going to be adding on this over time. So at $1.99 a month, you'll have a choice of icons beside your user account, as well as the green. Some custom emojis we're putting together. So we got Richard, we got Jerry.
We got Richard, Brian.
Oh, that's right, that is me. Oh my gosh, I look like a girl.
There's
get a haircut, get a real job.
Okay. There's Richard, Brian, Safety, and Madness.
Okay, and just for our friends in the chat, especially those Canadian, let's see if you can identify the helmet on the safety one.
There you go.
So join the channel at $1.99 a month, gets you access to the shoutouts in the videos, and we got some perks. Infill, we're building all the features, and it just daisy chains up there. So
Infill,
we have all
what you get right now with Infill is the Double T Tuesday, which will be a tip or a trick every Tuesday. And that'll only be available to people that are at the infill level and above. And then there is there's the top layer, which is members only after show and discounts on our merch, plus everything below that. And I will be putting up a video to really explain how this works, which you will see when you want to go into the join button.
And DeWitt 3D, I am very ashamed. Yeah, I saw that before you message retracted that. How dare you, as a Canadian, suggest it was Evel Knievel, you bugger. Dwayne King, you got it right. It is Super Dave Osborne,
That's
one of the greatest stuntman in all of history. And if you don't know who that is, I highly suggest you spend an afternoon, probably with a little bit of booze, because it is pretty terrible but funny. Super Dave Osborne doing some great tricks there.
Super Dave was hilarious.
We have to welcome Morgan Pierce to our infill level. Thank you very much, Morgan. I know
Welcome to the
Morgan
show,
quite well, and I do appreciate you supporting the channel, Morgan. Thank you very much once
Are
again.
we ready for a new question? Do we get?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're going to do one more
join-
question.
Okay, this is gonna have to be the last one then.
Last one for the day. All
The
right.
last one for the day from Robin Hood. What are the benefits of using a bed sticker on a glass bed? Does it really increase adhesion? And do glue sticks work better with it or better on the glass bed directly? Okay, what those stickers are is they are bed adhesion mats. Now, they work with some materials. They don't work very well with other materials. For something that will work with everything, clean glass bed with some glue stick should work with just about every filament. And I've tried nylon, I've tried PETG, ABS, PLA, HIPS. Glue stick on glass works great for all of them. So if you're thinking about buying a build tack or any of those other types of top sticker type dealios, think of it this way. Over time, they are going to wear out. So again, they become a consumable. If you got to pay $25 for a new one, even at the smallest 8x8, they're roughly between 15 and $20. You are going to have to replace that. Whereas a piece of glass, as long as you don't drop it on the floor, will last you forever.
Unless you get something really stuck to the glass and pull a piece out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we're talking about beds, basically, here's all we're trying to do. There are two ways of getting material to stick to a bed at a fundamental level. Number one is a textured surface, and the best way to describe it is if you were to look at a build tack surface or anything under a microscope, what you'd essentially see is something akin to the asphalt on your street. If your road was super smooth and you're running a car along it and you hit the brakes, you're going to keep on sliding because there's nothing for the two materials with the grittiness to grip to. So these build tack surfaces and all that, what it really is, a microscopic textured surface designed for the molecules of the filament to drag onto it, similar to an anchor of a ship, and hopefully the winner would be the bed, and the filament would stay with the bed and not with the nozzle. And so all the factors in play come down to that is, if it curls up on your nozzle, if it's doing that, it's because the surface tension of the bed did not win. Now, when we add heat into it, we're also adding a heat transfer element. And so by nature of material, a source is tending to attract sources, really, items that are, vice versa. When something is hot, its goal is to cool down and the heat wants to transfer somewhere. And so when you've got hot filament, it goes down onto the bed, and if the bed is too cool, then the rapid cooling of those first few layers of the molecules will cause it to harden and actually not bind to that surface. What we're trying to do is create a molten atmosphere where the chemical itself, the PLA in this case, kind of goes in and, while in liquid form, drives itself into those little chasms to create drag. And if it cools too quickly, it doesn't have enough time to reach those chasms on the material, because even glass has microscopic chasms. We just don't visually see it there. And it wants to drag in there. And that's why anything like surface oils that may not be visible to you can prevent that from happening. It's why impurities can cause that issue. We recommend a mirror because glass, if you ever take a clean piece of glass, and I mean a truly clean one, not just like Windex, anything like that, if you drag your finger across the surface, you're actually going to notice it's quite tactile. It actually prevents you from moving. And if you were to have that glass piece on the floor, you would notice you have foot traction. That's why you can have transparent floors that you don't slip and wipe out on like it's wet. And that's what we're trying to achieve, is this very microscopic textured surface for it to drag on, that's microscopic enough that it still appears smooth to the naked eye. So the textured PEI sheets with the giant stuff in there, yeah, you're going to get a textured surface, but boy, is that filament going to grip to that. As you wear down your build tacks and you start to smoothen out that surface over time, whether it's removing prints while they're too hot, removing all that surface detail where it gets smoother, and like a laptop keyboard, when you start seeing it shiny, there's just stuff filling all those microscopic grooves. There's nothing for it to grip on, and you're not going to be able to adhere your print.
And there you go. With that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you to all those people that signed up for our memberships today. We really do appreciate it. So from now on, this show, not just this show, but also our weekly shows are all brought to you by our members of the First Layer. So thank you very much. You'll see your names at the end of our recorded shows starting this week. And starting this week, there will be the Double T Tuesday. That's your tip or trick for the week. Brian will be bringing you those. And we're going to get...
As I'll call it, Titty Twister Tuesday.
And we are going to be adding some things to the tiers, like the Discord and things like that this week. And we'll give you guys, those that have joined, we'll send out some information to you guys so you know how to get in touch with us through Discord and things like that. So until we see you guys next time,
we will definitely be doing some for these guys because they're our earliest joiners. So this is a cause for celebration. And you know what, guys, it's going to be a great 2021. Thank you for joining us again.
Yes. So until we see you next time, bye from me, bye from Brian, bye from Jerry. And remember that the First Layer is always your foundation to a great print. See you guys next time.
Oh, that's so sweet, Jerry. You muffling it over Richard. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.